Mary Beth Stapleton, Manager of Family and Community Partnerships for Harford County Public Schools. Thank you for joining us today for the Parent Academy Real Talk on quarantine support for parents. With me today is Becky Pincero, who's coordinator of e-learning for Harford County Public Schools. Hey, Becky.
Hi.
Thanks for joining me. And I want parents to know that we are both moms, first and foremost, of Harford County Public School students. Becky, you have children that attend Harford County Public Schools, right?
I do. I have a 5th grader and a 7th grader.
Awesome. And I have a 10th grader at North Harford High. So before we jump in, we just wanted our parents to know that, we are living this every day just like you are, and navigating these waters. So it's a challenge, but we are up to the challenge. Becky, to get us started, if you're just a question we were hearing from parents, and that's really what I'm going to be asking you. But before we get into that, just your background and how are you supporting schools, and how do you know about this quarantine support for parents?
Sure. So I've been working with all 54 of our schools to work with academic supports for our students who are isolated and or quarantined. So today, throughout our conversation, we're going to talk a little bit about some academic supports during isolation and quarantine, and then what other supports are available after your child returns from a possible isolation or quarantine situation.
Great, thank you. Well, that's very helpful. So first things first, we've heard that there are situations where children might test positive for COVID-19 outside of school, or in their circle of friends, they might be in close contact with someone else who has COVID-19. So if it happens outside of school, what should the parent do?
Yeah, so I just experienced this myself as a parent. One of my children were possibly exposed to COVID during a sporting event. And the recommendation is that we as parents contact our child's school and ask to speak with a nurse for guidance on next steps on what you should do as a parent to make sure that your child is safe and their classmates remain safe from COVID-19.
Well, thanks for sharing that about what happened with your family, and it's nice to know that things turned out well. So it's good to know everyone's healthy. So thinking about that, so if your child is if you're contacted by the school nurse and your child's either had exposure outside of school, inside of school, once that happens and there is a suggestion of quarantine or isolation, what happens next? What should the parent expect next as far as quarantine support?
So if you do get a phone call from the nurse or the school administration in regards to a close contact or positive COVID test, parents should receive either a letter, an email, or a phone call stating that the child was a close contact or tested positive. But as parents, our next steps would be what are those supports, and what can my child do while they're home on quarantine? And the best way to do that is to contact your child's teacher. And the teacher would be able to give you some more information on what supports are available in that particular school. We do have teachers who are working after hours to support students who are on quarantine. And then they could also talk to you a little bit about some of the other supports, some of the academic tutoring programs that we have within the county as well. But it is really important to note that we do need to give a little bit of grace to the teachers during this time. When I reached out to my child's teacher, I knew that within an hour I wasn't going to get the work. We need to give, teachers a day or two to gather some of the assignments for students who are going to be out on isolation and quarantine, because they still are attending to, the rest of the class during the day. So just showing a little bit of grace to those teachers and giving them a little bit of time to get some of the classwork together for your child while they're on isolation and quarantine.
And as always, if for whatever reason you want more questions answered, you can always contact the school directly and speak with an administrator, correct?
Correct. And there is a directory right on our HCPS website under Contact Us that you can find a full listing of all of the phone numbers and contact information for each individual school.
That's great. And so once you're in contact with your child's teacher and they're in contact with you, what are the kinds of instructional materials or supports that the parent can expect to receive?
Sure. So, Your child will be sent home with their Chromebook or laptop if they're placed in isolation and quarantine. Many teachers are using the It's Learning platform to load the makeup work and assignments that students would be missing during isolation and quarantine. It is important to note, though, that last year when we used It's Learning, as parents, that's where we went to get our child their live link for the day. During isolation and quarantine, the children will have work provided in It's Learning, but there won't be a live link that the children will actually tap into the classroom for live lessons. The work will be there, but the teachers won't be teaching to the students at home as well in the classroom at the same time. Other schools may be sending home some instructional materials in paper form. You may be asked as a parent to come to the office just as if your child was out sick, maybe in the past with the flu, and you came and you picked up a folder with the work, depending on the grade level and some of the work that they're doing or currently working on in class. That teacher might recommend actual physical supplies or instructional materials that would be picked up at the office. So those are the two things that you could expect, work in It's Learning, and then possibly maybe picking up a novel or, some paper pencil kind of assignments.
So, and that's a really great point about the difference between last year and this year, right? So we don't have that that hybrid learning going on as we have before. So thanks for clarifying that. But if there is a challenge with the computer or the It's Learning materials, just like last year, we do have that technology support available for families, correct?
We do, and it's the family technology support. And what families can do is they can email technical questions at hcps.org. So if there's anything that is wrong with the Chromebook, or you're not able to connect, or you're having issues locating something in It's Learning, you can always email your questions to that email address, which again is technicalquestions@hcps.org. We also have a live support line, a phone line that you can call in with your questions, and you'll see that displayed on your screen.
Very good. Thank you for that too. And then in addition to all of this support, if a parent is observing that a child is struggling with a certain subject, content area, we do have extra supports this school year, correct, to help perhaps bring our child up to speed if there's been a bit of lagging from last year, impact from last year. Could you just describe for parents what that looks like?
Sure. So we have our HCPS academic tutoring program, and this tutoring program is open for students to place a request, whether they're in isolation or quarantine or they're not. So if a student is in isolation and quarantine and needs assistance on, short-term basis, the best bet is going to be to reach out to the school or to the teacher for that immediate support. But if a student maybe has some gaps from last year, or comes back from isolation and quarantine and can't get up to speed and needs long-term academic support on a regular basis, then the recommendation would be to fill out a request form for our academic tutoring program. And that that email address with the request form can be found right on the HCPS website under Parents, and we'll pop that on the screen here for in a minute as well. And then we also have another opportunity, which is through the Harford County Public Library. This program is kind of cool because they're live from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until midnight every single day.
Wow.
And we're gonna populate that website address as well onto this call, or to this video, where you can just pop onto that website, and it's a form that you fill out, and the Harford County Public Library connects you to one of their live tutors. And like I said, their availability is from 2 p.m. till midnight. So our high school students who may have sports after school and are doing their homework really late, it'll support them all the way up through midnight.
Wonderful. Well, that's great.
And back to the Harford County Academic Tutoring Program, once that request is filled out, the tutoring coordinator will reach out to families for placement. Typical tutoring sessions are approximately 1 hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour per week on a specific content area. So when you fill out the form, there'll be a place for you to sign up with what area of concern that you have. and those tutoring opportunities are available for students K through 12.
Great. Well, that's an excellent resource, of course, to ease the concerns of parents if they're seeing some struggles and challenges with their children's progress. So that's good to know. And then finally, thinking about technology support, again, last year, several of our families were given hotspots to support internet access. Any thoughts about what to do if you're struggling with internet access as a family and, sustaining that connection?
Sure. So the first thing you can do is reach out to your school, or you can send an email to hotspots@hcps.org to request the use of one of the HCPS hotspots. If you're having internet trouble at home and you can't send the email, first thing to do would be to reach out to the school, and they would be able to connect you with that office that would deal with loaning out our hotspots here at HCPS.
Great. Well, this has all been very helpful information, and I feel reassured as a parent that there are supports in place for our children if they are home because of quarantine and isolation. And I really appreciate your time and sharing all of this all of these great resources for parents, Becky. So thanks so much for your leadership in this.
Sure.
And thank you all for joining us for the Parent Academy Real Talk. We'll see you next time.